You can make pretty good course videos filming on your webcam or iPhone, or even filming in automatic mode on your DSLR. But if you've been wanting to take your video quality to the next level, it's time to turn that dial to M, manual mode. How does it work? What is an ISO? What is f-stop? It's really hard to put those consonants together. I'm going to answer those questions and help you find the best camera settings for filming your online course. Let's get into it. Hello creators, I'm Ben Tolson from Podia, where we empower creators like you to make a living doing what you love. Working with automatic mode on your camera can be a great way to start out with a DSLR and still make quality videos. But if you've been wanting to unlock the full potential of your camera's features and have a better understanding of how cameras work in general, you've come to the right place. I'm going to walk you through how each of the major features work and give you some ideas about what settings might be best for your course videos. I'm going to take these settings in the order you'll want to set them in order to get the best look. Before you set up your camera, you'll want to set up your lighting. If you set up your camera before your lights, you'll have a lot of extra adjustments to make once you turn the lights on. If you haven't watched our video on lighting, you can check it out here. The first setting we're going to talk about is frames per second. Frames per second, or FPS, determines how many individual frames are shown each second. The higher the number, the smoother the motion looks. You might have seen people talking about turning off motion smoothing on their TVs. That's because some modern TV screens play videos back at 60 or even 120 frames per second, which looks really strange if you're watching a movie because most movies are shown in 24 FPS, which is usually described as cinematic. Most course videos are shot in either 24 or 30 frames per second. 24 frames per second is more cinematic and immersive. This is a great setting, especially if your course content is visually geared. Examples of courses this setting works well for are video or photography instruction, drawing or painting, or exercise and dance courses. 30 frames per second is a bit smoother and is the default playback for broadcast television. This setting is great if your course material is more instructional and authoritative. Courses this setting works well for could include cooking instruction, courses on outlining or journaling, or courses about business development. The next setting we're going to talk about is shutter speed. Shutter speed is the length of time the shutter opens to expose a frame to what's coming through the lens. The longer the shutter stays open, the more light is allowed in and the blurrier the motion is. The less time it stays open, the less light is allowed in and the sharper the motion is. A basic rule of thumb is you want the shutter speed to be about double your frame rate. This means if you're shooting in 24 frames per second, which is 1/24th of a second, you want your shutter speed to be about 1/50th of a second. And at 30 frames per second, you want your frame rate to be 1/60th. This creates the most natural motion, and unless you're shooting an intense action scene for your course, it should be just perfect. F-stop is the next stop on our camera settings journey. F-stop has to do with the amount of light that's allowed through a small ring in your lens called the iris or aperture. This setting affects how bright your image is and also the depth of the focus field. The higher the f-stop, the less light and the more in focus the foreground and background will be together. The lower the f-stop, the more light and the blurrier your foreground or background will be depending on where your lens is focused. Depending on how well lit your studio is, you might use a lower f-stop to maximize the amount of light coming into your camera. A lower f-stop can be good if you want to have your background elements out of focus behind you to keep more of the focus on you and your presentation. If your background has elements that are important to your course material, like specific equipment or tools, it might be good to raise the f-stop so they are also in focus. The next setting is ISO. ISO also influences the amount of light coming into your camera. You might realize by now that there is more than one way to make your shot brighter or darker, which is why I've taken you through these settings in this order. In a moment, I'll talk a little bit more about the relationship between these settings and how they influence light. If your ISO is higher, you're allowing more light into your shot, but you're also allowing more grain or noise into your shot, like this. If your ISO is lower, there's less light and also less noise. Generally, you want to make your ISO as low as possible to avoid unwanted noise in your shot. You can accomplish this by adjusting other settings on your camera or by adding more physical light to your space. These three settings, shutter speed, f-stop, and ISO, all influence the amount of light coming into your shot, but also influence different aspects of your shot. Shutter speed can make the motion blurrier or sharper. F-stop can make your depth of focus shallower or deeper, and ISO can make your shot cleaner or noisier. In most cases, you'll always want to keep your shutter speed at double your frame rate. F-stop can be adjusted depending on how focused you want specific elements in your shot, but will maximize the amount of light at its lowest setting. Because of the way f-stop and shutter speed influence the look of your shot, you'll typically want to set those first and then adjust your ISO for light. Now that we've figured out our light, we are going to focus on a setting that has to do with the color tone of your shot. This setting is called white balance. White balance is basically the hue of the white in your shot. It affects the temperature, which ranges from cool blue colors and warm yellow colors, to tint, which ranges from greens to reds. Your first goal when setting white balance is to get a natural looking skin tone. And your second goal when setting white balance is to get a natural looking white anywhere there's white in your shot. The color of the physical lights you're using can also affect the white balance. If you have a warmer light, like you'd see with the sunrise or sunset or lamplight, your shot might look more yellow. If you have cooler light, like midday sun or incandescent bulbs, your shot might look more bluish. In many cases, either the automatic white balance setting or one of the presets will make the color in your shot look correct. If you do need to adjust the white balance manually, just remember to get the skin tones right first and white tones right second. The very last setting we're going to talk about is resolution. Should you shoot in 4K or 1080? One of the ways you can approach answering this question is to think about how your students will consume your video content. 1080 looks nice and crisp on most mobile devices, but when you watch 1080 footage on larger desktop screens, it might be easier to see imperfections in the shot. If you have a powerful enough computer and can edit 4K footage, I recommend shooting in 4K. You can use this footage in one of two ways. You can edit in a 1080 resolution frame and scale down your 4K image so that you can pop into the image and create alternative shots for different cuts. Alternatively, you can edit in a 4K space, still pop in a little bit for alternative shots, but get that nice crisp 4K resolution. As of this recording, YouTube's compression on 4K seems to produce a sharper 1080 version than uploading 1080 by itself. All of that said, 4K footage does take a lot of computing power to edit and render and can add extra steps to the editing process. So you'll have to determine what's best for you based on the quality you're going for and the way your students might consume your course content. I want to encourage you to practice using your camera in manual mode and playing around with the settings. It's really interesting to see how your image changes based on how you adjust the ISO and adjust the f-stop. Take it outside of your normal studio setting and see how those settings work in different lighting environments. Before you know it, you'll be a pro and your course videos will look amazing. I want to hear from you. What kind of camera are you using to film your course? Tell me in the comments below. If you found this video useful and you want more relevant content like this, click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you can be the first to know when we post new content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.